I'm Lou Rosalia, and this is Crew Call. Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about two really interesting things that fill all five senses, and the topics couldn't be any more different. First thing we're going to talk about is pyro versus drones, who wins? And the second thing is cleaning up language in the production community. And as always, it's my great pleasure to welcome our esteemed panel of guests, Mr. Joe Ferro.
Thanks, Lou.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Scott Glozzi.
Thank you for having me.
And Mr. Frank S.
What's up, Lou?
Good, buddy.
Oh, I don't even get a full out.
Yeah, I figured I did it once. Let me. We'll leave it at that. Ferro. Okay. Frank Ferro. I got it.
All right.
Guys, we're coming off of the 4th of July weekend, and Macy's did their thing, and there was a bunch of drone shows out there as well. So it got me thinking about stuff, and I thought about the differences in them and, what was better for me and what wasn't. Joe, I'm going to start with you. If you had to go see a show, would it be a fireworks show or a drone show, and why?
First, let me qualify for those of you who don't know what a Macy's thing is. There's a huge fireworks show put out on the river out here that Macy's sponsors every year since I think they invented fireworks. So that's the Macy's thing that us New Yorkers know of.
Thank you.
Now, what I'm thinking is, personally, I don't really like either one of them.
You don't?
I don't, but if I had to watch one of them, it would probably be fireworks. There's just a more multi-sensory kind of environment going on watching fireworks than a bunch of hovering electronics flying around over my head.
Okay. Frank, I know you to be a drone operator. Do you see any competition between fireworks and drones?
No, not at all. They're two completely different shows.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't see, he immediately said fireworks and not drones, but I feel like you wouldn't, want to always go to like a drone show. I think there's more you can hear. It's the sensory part of it. You can hear more. It's like more, it's in your body with like fireworks and stuff like that. A drone show, like watching it on TV where there's music and all that kind of stuff, maybe would be cooler. But I don't think they're in the same category. Both visually stimulating, but I don't think they would be competitors.
Yeah.
At all.
You know what? I agree, because part of the drone show that I saw, they actually put up those QR codes, those crazy boxes that you scan? They actually put up a QR code in the sky, and people had scanned it with their phone, and it took them to a game that they were selling over in Shanghai. So that was really pretty interesting.
Well, yeah, I don't think you can do that with fireworks.
No.
So that's a plus.
You're lucky to get the starburst right. Ozzy, based on Joe's and Frank's reply, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this whole thing? Agree, disagree?
I think I would probably rather see a drone show, just because I think, fireworks, you set a firework off, it's cool, you have your grand finale, whatever, but drones, there's so many different technical things going on that people don't realize, behind the scenes, that kind of make it a little more majestic, all of them working together and in unison, and it creates this grand scheme, this big picture, and it's just, it's so cool. We were joking, saying, like, imagine if there was a million operators, all operating each drone, and that's not what's going on. So it's all of them working together under one program. That's really, really cool to me, and I'm not exactly sure how that works, but I would rather see a drone show for sure.
Yeah,
I would like to see them combined.
Interesting.
I would combine them. That would be very cool, because you might
fireworks
see
off of drones
shot out of the sky. Yeah. That might be a little crazy, but
Well, I was just going to say that then becomes a competition, because the fireworks would be taking out the drones, and the drones would have to be evasive.
Yeah, but if you could, somebody could design that. Obviously, the fireworks are a little more unpredictable, and the drones are spot on predictable for the most part.
Yep.
That would be pretty impressive.
All right, let's not tell anybody, because I think that's a Ferro production. We're going after that.
It's an up and coming. We got to cover the five senses. Joe, if you were asked to produce a pyro or firework event or a drone event, which one would you go with? Which would you prefer to work?
Having worked pyros and not having worked drones, I'd have to say I'd prefer pyro, it's as Frank was, it's live. It has feelings. There's people involved in it. You're actually shooting things, and it's scored to a music, and there's a lot of I don't know. There's a lot for me. The whole thing with live is being on the edge. It's the adrenaline rush. I think there's more adrenaline rush doing a pyro show than there is doing a drone show. But I'm going to qualify that with the other side. Doing pyros demands huge space, demands intense safety, a whole lot of insurance, and a lot of really dangerous equipment. Drones, not so much. You can do drones just about anywhere. You don't need that big of an environment. For the grandeur of the show, you do, but it's not going to, if a drone falls out, it's not going to kill well, maybe it could, I don't know. But I can guarantee you, with all the pyro going off, that's why they do it out on the river, that's why they do it in huge fields, or like my neighbor down the block does it in his backyard, and it's just crazy dangerous because everything's landing on our roofs.
Yeah, I never thought about the whole, the complexity of some of the issues you just brought up. What I did think about was that the pyro and the fireworks thing seem to appeal to the primal instincts we have. And then the drone thing would be more cerebral, because if I'm watching a drone show, I'm thinking, wow, this is really interesting technology. How are they operating that stuff? I got a whole bunch of thoughts going on. But when you're talking about the fireworks show, you got that whole, fear thing. There's the light first, and then you hear the sound, and it's totally a primal, fight or flight type of response. So I think that's a very interesting dichotomy to go back and forth. Is there any instances that you guys remember or recall that are any kind of war stories about any issues at concerts or things that kind of went right but went wrong? I see a lot of laughing, a lot of nodding, a couple of grins. Yeah. Frank, you want to go first?
Yeah, I do. Really quickly before I tell that story, I also think for like little children that either never seen fireworks, only because I happened to watch them this 4th of July with my niece and like a bunch of other little kids. Yeah, it's definitely way easier for them to probably watch a drone show because it's not like that, big noise and scaring them, and maybe with dogs as well, and other people who are afraid of big sounds and stuff like that. So that's also something to think about.
It's totally modified. Yeah.
As far as something going wrong, I worked the Governor's Ball music festival like 4 years ago maybe, and I was one of the on stage like handheld guys. I was the only one for my stage at least. And there's all different shows that are rolling in, like rap, rock, like weird other shows. Was like EDM type of music or like techno shows, and though they have huge, especially the EDM ones, they had like huge pyro stuff going on. I don't know I'm sure Joe would probably know what they are. Is like the ones that are just the little pipes in the front that pop up right in the front and they spark kind of. So they were rehearsing, they were setting up for that, and I'm hanging out on stage like not far from these things. Oh, it was flames actually. I'm sorry, it was fire. It was actual fire. And
actual fire.
They're going through, and I'm standing next to the guy that's clicking them all and shooting them off. And he's going through, he's like, first of all, you can feel the heat from 10 feet away. Like, it's hot when they go off.
Right.
I mean, it feels like you're standing in, like, a fire pit. And he's going through, and one of them didn't go off. And he starts walking. He's like, oh, that's weird. He starts walking over to it and sticks his head, like he looks down the barrel of this thing, and I'm like, what? Like, I don't know much about it, but I would never do that.
Common sense.
I'm not gonna stand over it, and then somebody, while he was doing it, I guess was trying to fix it and pushed it, and it went right in this dude's face. Like, he jumped back. Thank God it didn't like burn his whole head off.
Wow.
But he absolutely got like singed for sure.
Wow.
And I was freaked out, and then took a couple steps back from being near that during the show. And like, I pretty much, I was pretty active on stage for all the other ones. That one I kind of made my way not anywhere near that stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. So that was.
Wow.
It didn't happen to be the performer Marshmallow, right? Because then it would have kind of been nice to have a big snore.
No, it was Galantis, actually.
Ah,
I don't know
okay,
why-
well-
I don't know why I remember that, but that's who it was.
That's crazy.
Okay, never
Yo,
mind.
All right, I'm going to piggyback that story and then lead that into another one. Exactly what Frank was saying, and I'm going all the way back to my club dates playing bands. I was doing sound in a club for a band that, back in those days, nobody really knew anything about anything we were doing. And we traveled with the same group of people. So our lighting guy was also responsible for what Frank was talking about, their flash box.
Okay.
But when you don't have the official flash boxes, they're really easy to make. You take a coffee can, you take flash powder, and then you take a thin piece of copper gauge wire and you tie it across. And then you take AC power and you tag it onto the outside. Your switch panel in the back, which was homemade with little light switches, literally like in your house, we made a whole panel of those, and that's how he keyed all the lights on the stage.
Oh my God.
And we were doing the show. Two things happened, two different shows. One, the flash went off and lit the curtains on fire, took the whole thing down. Second, and this is exactly what Frank was saying, except on an amateur level. So we were done with the set, and the lighting guy said to me, wow, one of those flash boxes didn't go off. So he walked up, looked into the can, kicked it, but never turned the switch off.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
As soon as he kicked it, the flash went off in his face, and he didn't get out of the way. He had his hands covered, his hands were black and burnt, and he was covering his face. And obviously, we all came down. We were between sets. We came down, and we were like, dude, you okay? You okay? And he was like, yeah. Well, the bass player is standing next to me, and he goes, I don't think I can see. And he pulled his hands away. His face was just charred.
Oh God.
And his eyes were white. And the bass player goes, oh my God, you look so horrible. You're blind. And I was like, shut the up. I was like, what are you doing? And the guy was like, what's the matter? Joe, am I okay? I was like, yeah, you're fine. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. We'll put a little cream on there. Nobody's even going to notice. It burned his hairline all the way back to about the
my
middle of his
God.
head.
Oh gosh.
And of course, now we're getting ready. Was the first thing club owners, any of you who have ever worked in those size clubs, the club owners screaming at us, get back up there and play, get back up there and play.
Merciless.
Because everybody in the place is freaking out. So, we rushed him off to the hospital. He was a mess. It took him, fortunately, 2-3 years later, he's absolutely fine. But he
Wow.
has all the scars from the burn. Now, on the positive side of that, years later, I became very good friends with one of the pyrotechs out in California from Pyro Spectacular. Dan was a technology wizard that I knew from the synthesizer days. And he became their wizard automating all of their Pyro Spectacular. So there's a huge convention that's a global convention where all the pyro guys come
Right.
and compete. And they all compete in one place. And you can't get in unless you're one of the pyro guys. So Dan invited us up there. And for 4 days nonstop, there was the most amazing pyro shows I've ever seen in my life. And their grand finale, Gloss, as you said, you know those huge sewer pipes, those big, huge concrete sewer pipes, if you've ever seen them go in?
Yeah. Yeah.
They built a shell, and the shell launched from inside there. It was
Wow.
one ginormous. This thing went off, just the concussion of it going up, crushed your chest. And when it exploded, I've never been in war, never seen anything like that, but I can't imagine anything was as insane as what that looked like.
Wow.
But nobody got hurt. Everybody's wonderful. These guys are spot on, safety first. They're all really, really good at what they do. And everything they build is 100%. They don't have idiots like our lighting guy doing that, or Frank's lighting guy, who was much more advanced, who shouldn't have been sticking his face in a shell. But
Wow.
anyway, there's my pyro stories.
So now I want to take us to the second half of drone versus pyro. Tough one. Pyro. Frank, as a drone operator, can you explain the difference between operating the drone as a solo operator and then swarm, and what swarm is, and how that works to the best of your knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, I know that somewhat about the swarming. I've never been a part of it, but I mean, I know it's. I was reading earlier actually about like you can contact this company and just kind of give them an idea for like what you want to do with it, and then they'll help you design something, or if you have a director that knows how to kind of use it, like with a music video and stuff, and then they basically make like a whole 3D plot or storyboard for you, and then it's using the software, however that works, making an algorithm that actually tells all the drones what to do, where to be, at what time, what color to be, what formation to make, and all that kind of stuff. So it's and then you're basically, I would assume, just pressing a button and it starts, like having like a playlist, as opposed to a DJ that's there like actually scratching, or if he just has a playlist like at a party and just presses play and it happens. Now, obviously, being a single operator, operating your own drone, doing your own stuff, whether it be for like a movie or just like a hobby or whatever, that's all manual, and that's all reliant on your personal skill to be actually able to fly. Now, single drones like that still do have, pre-recorded, I guess, moves that you can do. You can say, okay, start at this point and then end at this point, and it'll do the move for you. I personally don't do that, only because I feel weird about doing it, because then it's like, okay, well, like what am I doing? If I can't do it with my own skill, then I shouldn't be operating it. That's just my own rule for myself. So then, I mean, it's very cool technology, and it's a very, it's obviously like an amazing thing that they can be able to do that. And it's, a totally different new thing that, you can introduce to like a music video and telling a story, and, through a light show and doing all that, and kind of that whole connection between human and, AI kind of stuff. But for me, I would always probably stick with, being a single drone operator.
You're a drone purist.
Yeah. I mean, maybe flying with like synchronized with other people. Yeah. If you're all operating, I mean, that would be wild.
Yeah.
If you could do that. But I don't know how the hell that would happen. I mean, you'd have to have like pretty, that'd be like synchronized swimming, but like you're flying small helicopters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Impossible.
Claus, I'm going to go to you and talking about impossible. It seems like what Joe said earlier, that there's a lot of predictability in drone stuff, and in pyro and fireworks, you just don't know where stuff's going to go and how it's going to light, and there's a bunch of randomness. As a camera op, when you're capturing that stuff, what do you think are some of the challenges? What do you think will be easy? What will be difficult? Share a little of your wisdom.
Yeah, so I mean, I think some of the biggest challenges might even be exposure when you're shooting fireworks, because one might be a small firework, one might be a huge firework, and the larger fireworks are going to obviously give off a lot more light. And if you're not exposed correctly, your shot's going to be blown out. And on the other side of that, when you're waiting to see it, your shot's going to be dark. So you're going to have a lot of challenges that pop up in terms of trying to expose to the fireworks, and then obviously just knowing where they are. I'm sure there's rehearsals and things like that, but a lot of times the camera operators aren't there to see that. When you're shooting drone shows, you know where the drones are. They all have lights on them, little lights, and you're already ready to expose for that. So and like we've been talking about, they have predetermined moves, so you get a general sense of where everything's going to be in the sky. There's a firework over here, a firework over there, and you're like moving all around. You're going to miss something, your exposure. So there are a lot of challenges, but yeah, pyro versus drone. Like I said earlier, I would much rather shoot a drone show and capture that. I think it's a little easier. Pyro is a little more challenging for sure.
So the second topic I want to talk about with you guys was triggered, interesting word, and I'll explain why, by an article I read over the weekend. It was by a group called PAMA, P-A-M-A, the Professional Audio Manufacturers Alliance, and they're leading an effort to create a more inclusivity and to get rid of old language that triggers people, call back to trigger, and they're targeting the audio industry because I guess it's got a bunch of unique terminology that they're finding offensive now, like male and female when it comes to connectors, and there's master and slave when it comes to drives, and there's a whole bunch of other ones that are interesting as well. So you guys know what I'm talking about. But the part that caught my attention is terminology. There's so much of it. There's so many terms for the same types of things, and there's a lot of crossover. So I'm going to start with you, Joe, because you've worked through the different sectors of the business. How did you learn the terminology? How did you know where to separate it and where to bring it together? And just how do you get your head around it?
There's two ways you learn. One is it's intuition.
Okay.
You have to kind of know what's going on, and when somebody says something that you've not heard, you got to kind of think real quick what that could be about. And then the second half is just being made fun of, because that is how this business works. I mean, that's how every business works.
All right, talk more about that.
You're going to take the newbies in, and you're going to, oh, I said this, oh, you said that. Here's the example, is in cameras, in broadcast, the battery that operates the cameras are removable, so you have to keep replacing them.
Yeah.
But for some reason, they're called bricks. And if you're an assistant and you're just into that situation, and Frank or Gloss looks at you in the middle of a live E&G show and says, dude, go get me another brick, you're going to think cocaine. Well, I would think cocaine. Other people might not think cocaine. But some people might think Mason. I don't know. But that would be the point. Those are the ways you kind of learn. You tripping over stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Frank, in school, I know you went to school for this, for production and whatnot. Is there like a book? Did they give you like a thesaurus, a dictionary? Is there some sort of formal, okay, here you go. Here's all the abbreviations to everything, and here's the terms. How does that work?
I don't know. Honestly, if they gave me a book, I didn't read it, but I could definitely tell you that if they gave you a book, none of those terms are probably even ones that people actually use in the business.
Correct. Really?
At all.
Really?
Yeah. Because there's, I don't know. And like he said about intuition, it's just like you're kind of learning and just being aware of what's happening, and then you learn. Okay, now I know what that means. Now I know what that means. I mean, and I learned stuff not even just because of camera stuff, but like starting to work with like riggers that build like stages and stuff that I have to interact with building stuff like up in big lighting trusses and whatnot. They have a whole different thing of terminology where like I'm just like yeah. They're like, oh, can you get me? It was like a cheeseboro, which are like the two little clamps like that. I'm not gonna explain the whole thing of what they are, but like a cheeseboro, and then using the winches and stuff. Like it's all like stuff that's like old, like they're real things that are there. But if you've never been a part of it before, I would never have to have thought about that or know that word. But I'll just say yes, and then like I'll kind of like figure it out by watching other people. I mean, I've been doing that since I was little anyway.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just paying attention and being smart, and then knowing once you learn it, like retaining it, and then being able to, okay, cool, now I know that word. Now I can talk to other people and talk that whole talk. I will say one thing really quickly about somebody not knowing something and getting made fun of, and I will never forget this in my entire life. It wasn't me, but he said it to me. And he was an intern with us years ago. I turned to him and I asked him if we were setting up some E&G thing, and we needed use sandbags to hold down like lights or like something that would fall over. You would use weight to hold it down.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey man, can you go inside and grab a couple sandbags? And he's like, okay. Hey Frank, what's a sandbag? And I was like, what? What do you mean? And I was like, it's a effing bag of sand. Like, go get one. What are you talking about? And then he was just like got nervous and just ran away. And I was like, what was that about? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and then so I don't know. I guess if you're never in a situation where you ever needed a sandbag, he didn't think fast enough to just be okay. It's a bag of sand that you need for weight to hold this down, because he wasn't paying attention to what I needed to do. But yeah, so that shit happens all the time.
That might be like overthinking things too. Thinking there's a term for everything, where really a sandbag's just a sandbag. You know what I mean? Like, what do you really mean? I don't know.
I guess he's just nervous. Interns being intimidated. I don't know.
Gloss, so that leads me to my question for you, and it's you've worked at CNN, a couple of corporate gigs, network gigs. Is there language or terminology or vernacular that's not appropriate in that environment? there may be a name that's a little bit off color, but it's really not. You would use it, amongst the crew, but if there was a boss there, would that make a difference? And how do you handle that in your own business at Urban Visuals when you got clients around?
Well, I wouldn't say there's many terms that you can't say. Like I would probably say the same things in front of my colleagues as I would in front of my boss. All the terms kind of cross over, but in terms of carrying things, I guess maybe what you're asking is carrying terms from studio space into business.
There you go.
It's much different. Yeah, like I can say to an intern, hey, we got to strike the set, put the C47s with the Duve and the C stands, and they'll be like, the hell did you just say to me? In business, you're just using layman's terms with clients and things like that. So yeah, there's a crossover. Things are different. There's industry terms and there's camera terms, but there's nothing. I wouldn't really ever say there's like offensive terms if that's what you're asking. That I can't say in the studio. And if there is, then yeah, use some reserve and maybe don't say it. But I think we all know better than that. But.
I mean, there's some weird ones for sure. That if you don't know what someone's talking about, like just like on the one that I can think of right away. If somebody hears you oversay it, like it's weird. Here, like on the end of a mic, like to have a mic be a wireless mic, like a stick mic,
right?
You would call it a butt plug.
See,
like if somebody hears you say that, like that's pretty weird.
There's one right there.
I got one.
Go.
Camera covers, rain gear.
Oh yeah.
We call them condoms.
Yeah.
No.
Camera condoms.
Yeah. Camera condoms.
Yeah.
Well, am I right, Frank? Right?
Yeah.
We do.
No,
I didn't even think
I
that.
wouldn't even. Yeah, like you don't think about it. Yeah.
That's how normal it's become.
It's normal, but like. Yeah.
Yeah. And Lou, when you started this segment, and you mentioned the audio connectors,
yeah, sure.
I've been doing this longer than I will tell you, and I never thought about a male and female being a male and I understand it. I understand where the names came from, but there's also like female turnarounds. There's male turnarounds. I mean, the audio industry is littered with terms now that I'm thinking about it. Holy, yeah, no wonder they're changing these words.
So much of it.
I'm going to bite my tongue on what a female turnaround could be.
You can't. You cannot. You cannot even say anything.
No, I know.
I think condom punctuates this story. Let's keep moving forward.
So second half is, I wanted to talk about the terminology, and what we just spoke about was somebody like me with a little bit of knowledge who maybe picks up a term or two and starts throwing it around like I'm the client. Joe, how messed up is it when somebody learns a term and gives it to you and you accept it for what it is, and production takes a path that it should never have been on had the proper term been used?
Absolutely the worst. And it happens within the FerroCity family. I mean, we say things trying to be helpful, and in turn, somebody assumes, oh, okay, yeah, that's what you meant, and then we go off, and now we're screwed because we're all the way down, and when they see it, they go, oh, no, that's not what I was thinking. Mm-hmm. Well, that's literally what you said.
Right. And if anybody doesn't realize it, he's talking about... Go ahead.
I love you to death, and you and I've had this conversation.
I know, that's why I'm laughing.
Just don't use the terms.
Yep.
Because they mean very specific things to us.
Yep.
And we even get burned within our own business because, again, when I cross over from, a live theater stage to a recording studio, music recording studio, to a television event, I change terms. I'm like multilingual because in my head I'm like, oh, they're not going to know what I mean when I say this. But an audio person knows that when I say a 1/4-inch jack, they call them 1/4-inch jacks. But a television A2 who's never been in audio might not know what I'm talking about, usually doesn't. So those terms, and like Frank was saying, when you're interfacing with a different discipline, it really, you're better off not using terms you're unfamiliar with. The example is, we all come from first generation, well, I do. We come from first generation people who speak 2 languages. And when you've got relatives or family or anybody, the guy who owns the deli, and he's using English terms, but doesn't really have a command of the English language.
Yeah.
They make big mistakes. I mean, it really screws things up. So I'm sorry, but the point is, don't use them.
Understood. Frank, you've worked a lot of international gigs with a bunch of international folks who speak different languages and broken English, different kind of sounding English and whatnot. Do they use different terms for stuff? Like, go ahead, tell me your story.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, last year, I mean, if you go, I think we even talked about it on our on location that we did last year when I was doing the U.S. Open.
US Open.
I mean, that was a big hurdle I had to get over with working just one-on-one, me operating 4 cameras and listening to one director that they were swapping out. So I could get a guy from Australia, I could get a guy from England, I could get a guy from France, and they all have their own little terms, or I mean, because it's also not even just their own way of speaking, but it's also just their own cadence of directing. Plus, they have an accent. So there's 3 different things you got to really pay attention to. And again, like I said before, it's just kind of learning and knowing like how a show would work and understanding, the flow of something. Like it's something like as simple as them saying, instead of saying ready, camera 1, they all say next. Like 1 next, 2 next. And like the first couple times you hear it, like you're not expecting somebody to say next. So you're like, okay, he means ready. Like, so it's little things like that. Plus on that whole thing, like I never did tennis before. So I was also learning the game, but then there's a whole terminology that's within the game that they're like saying, get the goat or get, this guy's doing whatever the whole thing is. They're talking about the sport.
Yeah.
And then it's, and then you have an Australian guy that speaks fast and slang terms and so that's absolutely
let me give you the one qualifier, because if this was we would have a bar up that explained what Frank just said about the directors calls for Glaz, Frank, any of us, when I'm going say Frank's camera 1, Glaz's camera 2, and I'm the director, I'm going to be okay, I'm on camera 1 right now, all right, ready, camera 2. Glaz knows, okay, I got to get ready, I got to hold my shot because he's coming to me. And you go, okay, ready, camera 2, go 2. All right, ready, camera 1, go 1. So that prep is critical. And when somebody changes the word.
Yeah, that's great. And then when you
took the words right out of my mouth.
Show the other day, and the guy was calling cameras. It was a behind the scenes something or other, but he was calling cameras, and these 2 would flip out. 1, 1, 2, 2. 3.
Nope.
So it was like, when he was saying it, I was like, what is that? And then I realized, wherever this was whenever it emanated from, that's that director's style. He just says it twice. And then if I direct it, and Frank's worked for me when I direct it, because I'm not a director, and if I had to sit in quick, I literally just told them, all right, consider yourself hot all the time. I'm just calling you. When I say 2, you're up. All right, go for it. I wouldn't even say go. I would go 4, 3, 2. Because that other stuff would bog my brain down. I got it now, but this was back in the beginning, right, Frank?
Yeah, and then I've been on shows also with Glaz, and 2 different things that he'll know what I'm talking about is one director who says ready 1 camera and then takes a different one. And Joe was on that as well. Not going to obviously name any names, but it was like ready 1, take 4. And it's like, all right, well, like now 4's on. And then the other one, Glaz, you're the only one that would get this because it was one of the graduations that we did when we were doing jib. And you like stepped in. The one guy, just by terminology, was like, all right, I see a gag 4. I was like, see your gag? It's like he sees what I'm selling him, basically. The shot that I'm selling him, and then he'll come to me because of that. So he would say that all the time.
Gag?
I see your gag. Yeah, like I see, because you could sell shots. If you're not on, you go look for something and you sell a shot. And he was buying what I was selling, but he saw my gag.
That's going on. That's going on.
What people at home don't know. What people at home don't know is that your camera number turns into your name when you're on set. Like you hear that and you're like, okay, focus. So if someone just takes 2, you're like, shit, I wasn't even ready yet. You might be a little off center. You might be zoomed in trying to get your focus. That's why these certain words and cadences are so critically important. You know, they're huge. And when you change the word next to the ready, that is just a humongous difference that you got to get used to in the beginning of the show, or you're going to constantly get burned.
Yeah, I think the cadence thing you just said brought it home for me. You know?
Yeah, and as far as numbers, like, I mean, bouncing around as a freelancer from one thing to another thing to another thing day to day, it's not like I don't carry my camera number with me from show to show.
Like your police.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's like, hi, I'm here. I'm camera 2. That's what I always am on everything else. So it's like, yeah, I mean, then it's like, okay, then I usually will take a piece of gaff tape and write my number and put it on the center of my monitor, so I can just stare at that while I'm there until it's burned into my head for the 10 hours that I'm there, and then I go somewhere else and I'm a different number.
Scott, I want to take it back to Scott. I had to get one in.
It's fine. You get one a show.
Thank you. Glass, I want to take it back to the terminology in business. You have to explain to people, clients, the services that you provide urban visuals, what you do, what you can do for them. Do you ever get lost, or do they ever get lost in the terminology of it, where they might be just yesing you to death, or you might be saying things that you think they're understanding? How's that go?
Yeah. So sometimes what I've learned over the last couple of years of doing business with clients who don't know much about camera work is that instead of describing how, if I come in, I'm like, hey, I'm going to shoot this in 4K. It's going to be 120 frames. It's going to look great. I'm going to shoot an S-Log. It's going to be a nice flat picture profile. They'll be like, what the hell is, they'll look at me like I have 5 heads. So instead of that, it's like, I'm going to shoot you a gorgeous video. It's going to help you build your business, and your clients and subscribers, what have you, are going to now come in and know what you do, and you're going to make more money. It's just you have to change the way you talk to people, because yes, people that are not technically savvy, and Joe and Frank, this firsthand, will get completely lost and just shut down if you start talking technical with them, and they just won't know. So yes, I've changed the way I speak to clients, customers, and it's helped a lot, rather than try to describe and pump up myself by describing specs or like what I can do.
Yep.
So
well,
yes.
Gentlemen, thank you. I have learned a tremendous amount of stuff, from the dangers of fireworks to the boringness and predictability of drones, to certain words we should never use, and how I should certainly use some words never, ever in my speaking to you. But thank you, everybody, for your time, and I really enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to seeing you all later, and I hope everybody got something really valuable out of this and a couple of laughs. Thank you, and I will see you all next time.
Thank you, Lou.
See ya.